We finally made it. After weeks of unforgettable moments, dramatic twists, and football that constantly rewrote the history books, has come to an end. Spain are world champions, but the final result is only part of the story. What made this tournament special was the feeling that almost every expectation we had before it began turned out to be wrong. When FIFA announced that the World Cup would expand from 32 to 48 teams, the reaction was overwhelmingly negative. Fans, former players, and coaches predicted too many mismatches, weaker nations being overwhelmed by the traditional powers, and a tournament that would lose its prestige. The logic seemed simple. More teams meant lower quality. Instead, the 2026 World Cup produced one of the most entertaining and competitive tournaments football has ever seen. There were more teams, games, and stories, but the extra scale did not make the competition feel diluted. The intensity was higher than expected. The football was faster than expected, and the gap between the biggest nations and everyone else looked smaller than ever before. So why did this tournament work so well? There are three main reasons: the level of competition, the amount of real football we actually got to watch, and the way the game itself has evolved. Together, they explain why the 2026 World Cup was not simply a successful expansion. It may have changed what a World Cup can be. Critics expected the new format to create huge gaps between football's strongest nations and the newcomers. Carlos Queiroz was one of many voices who argued that making qualification easier could reduce the value and prestige of the World Cup. In theory, the concern was understandable. A World Cup is supposed to be difficult to reach, and no one wanted to watch elite teams spend the group stage collecting easy wins. But the tournament quickly showed that the new teams were not there simply to take part. Paraguay knocked Germany out of the competition, one of the results that immediately changed the mood around the whole tournament. Morocco once again proved that their run in 2022 was not a one-time miracle. And then there was Cape Verde, perhaps the clearest example of how far international football has come. Before the tournament, very few people expected Cape Verde to make a serious impact. Qualifying alone was seen as a major achievement. Yet they did not lose a single match in regular time throughout their run. Spain could not beat them. Uruguay could not beat them. Argentina, one of the tournament's strongest sides, also had to wait until extra time in the round of 32 to finally eliminate them. That story mattered because it was not built on one lucky result. Cape Verde were organized, disciplined, and confident. They knew when to defend compactly, when to press, and when to attack the space left by bigger teams. Their run showed that smaller nations are no longer just hoping for a miracle. Many now arrive with a clear tactical plan, players developed in stronger leagues, and the belief that they can compete with anyone. What made their run even more impressive was the way they handled the pressure of each match. Against famous opponents, smaller teams can sometimes begin well and then lose belief after one difficult moment. Cape Verde did the opposite. They stayed patient when they were under pressure, trusted their shape, and treated every attacking opportunity as a chance to cause real damage. That is the difference between a team trying to survive and a team that genuinely believes it belongs at the tournament. At previous World Cups, a surprise result could feel like an isolated accident. In 2026, it felt like part of a wider pattern. The established nations still had more depth and more individual stars, but their opponents were no longer intimidated by the badge on the shirt. Every match demanded concentration, because one slow start, one poor tactical decision, or one missed chance could change the entire group. The expanded field gave more countries a place on the biggest stage, but it also revealed how much the international standard has risen. Better coaching, analytics, scouting, and players gaining experience in stronger leagues have all reduced the old divide between the famous nations and the rest. That does not mean every match was perfectly balanced. It never will be. But the fears of a tournament full of meaningless scorelines did not come true. More teams created more uncertainty and more opportunities for surprises. And once that competitive balance had been established, another change made the football itself feel noticeably better to watch. One of the biggest improvements at the 2026 FIFA World Cup was something many fans didn't notice immediately: effective playing time. For years, matches regularly lost valuable minutes to slow substitutions, delayed restarts, goalkeepers holding the ball, and players staying on the ground after challenges. The game was often interrupted by everything happening around football instead of football itself, making long periods of matches feel slower than they needed to be. For 2026, FIFA introduced several new rules to reduce time wasting and keep the ball in play. Substituted players had only 10 seconds to leave the pitch. Injured players had to remain off the field briefly after treatment. Goalkeepers could no longer delay goal kicks without risking a corner, and throw-ins had to be taken much more quickly. The changes had an immediate impact. One of the best examples came during Iran's group stage match. Iran failed to complete a substitution before play restarted, so the referees simply continued the game, forcing them to defend with 10 players until the next stoppage. It lasted only a few seconds, but it made one thing clear. If teams wasted time, the match would continue without them. Players adapted quickly. Time wasting became far less common. Games restarted faster, and the average effective playing time during the group stage reached just over 58 minutes per match, the highest ever recorded at a major international tournament, and even higher than the UEFA Champions League average. The difference was obvious. Teams had more time to attack, while defending a narrow lead became much harder. Slow substitutions, repeated stoppages, and goalkeepers taking half a minute over every restart could no longer kill the rhythm of the game, giving trailing teams a much better chance of mounting a comeback. It also changed the tactical demands on every team. More ball in play time meant more running, more transitions, and more moments where concentration could decide the outcome. Teams needed greater fitness, deeper squads, and smarter game management to maintain the same intensity from the first whistle to the last. The real question is what happened during those extra minutes. At the 2026 World Cup, the answer was simple. More attacking football, more chances, and more goals. Another trend that stood out throughout the tournament was the way teams attacked. Rather than relying on long balls or individual moments of brilliance, most successful sides focused on creating high-quality chances through quick passing combinations and intelligent movement. As a result, the average number of completed passes per match reached one of the highest levels ever recorded at a World Cup, showing how comfortable teams had become playing under pressure. Shooting numbers also reflected that evolution. Teams attempted more shots than at previous World Cups, but more importantly, a greater percentage came from dangerous positions inside the penalty area instead of speculative efforts from distance. Coaches increasingly prioritized creating clear-cut chances over simply taking more shots, leading to more efficient attacking football. The tournament also highlighted how quickly tactical ideas now spread across international football. Concepts that were once associated only with Europe's biggest clubs, such as inverted fullbacks, rotating midfields, and coordinated high pressing, were now being used by teams from every continent. That made matches less predictable and forced even the strongest nations to adapt rather than rely solely on individual talent. Technology played an equally important role. Data analysis and artificial intelligence have become essential tools for national teams, helping coaches analyze opponents, prepare detailed game plans, and identify weaknesses in a fraction of the time it once took. Smaller nations, who previously lacked the resources of traditional powerhouses, could now close that gap through better preparation and smarter decision-making. If this tournament proved anything, it's that the future of international football won't simply be decided by the players with the biggest names, but by the teams that adapt the fastest.